Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here in the heart of Clinton Square here in downtown Syracuse for this year's 2022 Syracuse Jazz Festival. This is the first jazz festival in 5 years, and festival organizer Frank Malfitano this year reignited this jazz festival with some of the most important, if not local artists, to participate in this festival. Tonight here on the Pace Report, I'm honored to be part of covering this, but I'm going to introduce you to a vocalist who not only has made a niche both here and abroad. Vocalist Nancy Kelly has not only carried the rich tradition of Black American music forward, but not only she swings, but she's also an educator who teaches the art of song as well as the beautiful nature of what this music does by way of the blues, jazz, as well as gospel. Tonight she's performing at the historic Landmark Theater here in downtown Syracuse, and you're going to see highlights of her performance, and I had a chance to sit down to break bread with her to talk about two recordings. Her current album, Jazz Woman, which is now available on iTunes, Amazon.com, and CD Baby, but also talk about an album that she released during COVID. Unfortunately, she could not perform due to the shutdown globally. Her album is Remembering Mark Murphy, which is a tribute to her hero, vocalist and also songwriter Mark Murphy. Tonight I had a chance to sit down to break bread with her to, one, reflect on the life of Mark Murphy, two, the importance of her role as an instructor, and two, how she takes different sets and makes it her own, meaning how she's able to transform her magic in capturing the vocalist and the audience. So sit back, relax, and enjoy highlights of Miss Nancy Kelly performing live at the historic Landmark Theater here in downtown Syracuse for the 2022 Syracuse Jazz Festival here on the Pace Report.
Don't care for me, I'm happy as I can be. I don't know that I love, never make it. Don't care.
You know, I'm elated that we're here together. I'm glad that you have decided to perform amongst, this is the first jazz festival here in Syracuse in 5 years. How do you feel?
It's great. It's great. It's great for the music. It's great for all the people. It's great for all the musicians and people that get to be together. I personally love these kind of events because I get to hang with all my pals. You know, people we don't see each other because we're all working, doing our own thing, doing our own touring and whatnot. So this is nice to be with everybody. Great for the audience to see us in such positive vibes.
You were at the landmark, the historic landmark here in downtown Syracuse, and I think what better way that Frank really kind of organized this festival is to bring the economy back to the city. And the landmark is in the heart of the downtown Syracuse area, and you had fans coming from place to place, and people got to see different types of musical styles of jazz. How you feel about that too?
I think it's hyper important. I mean, while we all are in our own little lanes, I hate that word. We're doing our own thing. My own thing. My thing is bebop swing. You know, I mean, he had all kinds of things going on, and it's very important, I think, for people to understand that jazz is not a four-letter word. You know what I'm saying? So they get to hear stuff that doesn't intimidate them, and then they get to hear some stuff that makes them think. So it's all the way around a really great experience for the audiences, for sure.
Nancy, one of the things that I wanted to do once we were kind of coming out, or still coming out of COVID, is I know a lot of artists had projects that they released during 2020, and now it's 2021, 2022, and they didn't have an opportunity to go out and promote the record and tour because the world was shut down. We're going to talk about both your projects. We're going to talk about one, your tribute to Mark Murphy, who's a hero. How did that project come about?
I got to think about this. It was 2 years ago, man. That came about because Mark had passed away, and I very quickly decided I was going to do some sort of tribute to him. And Jean-Pierre and I sat down and put our minds together and said, okay. And I started picking out the music. And now Mark has done so many incredible things with great depth, and just so many esoteric, beautiful pieces, unusual pieces. He said to me before he passed away, he said, I don't know what to record anymore. I think I recorded it all. But anyway, the tunes I ended up using were the ones that I listened to when I was putting him under the scope. You know, when I was young and listening to Mark and absorbing what he was doing, they were the tunes that spoke to me at that point in my musical journey. So some of them weren't some of the more esoteric pieces. So I ended up doing Body and Soul, which was big in my life. When I heard him do that, because I knew the tune, and I said, whoa, you know, it takes a minute. I had a student say to me the other day, so I went and listened to Mark, but I didn't get it. And I said, you will. It takes time. It takes time. So the stuff invariably is the things that really moved me.
That Red Clay.
Red Clay was the big hit off of that.
Yes, it was. And I would say something too. My last interview I just posted, it was Randy Brecker.
Oh, did you really?
Yes, Randy's on this album. He's on 3 of the songs. And Randy played on Mark's original songs too.
I wonder how that happened.
Yes.
Well, that's exactly how it happened. I knew that was part of the plan. And I said, well, you know, just let me call Randy. And he was thrilled to do it. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us in the studio. He was touring in China. And, you know, he and his wife, Ada, they have a wonderful setup at their home. And so he did the tracks at home, sent them to me, and we mixed them in. So cool.
Yeah.
He did a fabulous job. Yeah. And that solo's killing.
Yes, it is.
It's really killing. Yes, and you know, here, this is an interesting thing, that Red Clay, since I teach, I'm always thinking like that. Red Clay is one of those tunes you don't touch it. If you're going to re-record it, if you're going to have the guts to re-record that, you leave it be, because the art is so perfect. So I think what we did was bring ourselves to it. You know, the musicians brought themselves to it, but we didn't make a lot of great changes to it.
You did a fantastic job on it, and I'll tell you another vocalist who did a fantastic rendition on it was Jose James. In fact, Jose's version was more R&B fused.
Oh, so he took it to another place.
Yeah, he took it
See,
to
I'm not familiar with that. Now I will, of course, go check that out.
Phenomenal. But Red Clay is such a pivotal song for Freddie Hubbard too, because that kind of changed his life also when that record came out, because it was such a monumental hit for him. It's weird how we take vocalists and we take words and interpret jazz in a very different way and take it out to a different level. How do you teach that? Because you are a teacher and you host clinics. How do you teach your students that art form?
Teaching them how to actually do vocally?
Do vocally.
Like do their own writing, or
that, and also
or just recreate it.
There you go.
Okay. I have several students who are working on transcriptions of bebop solos. So this is a great way to get them familiar with it and the lyrics. The thing with some of these solos that they've put lyrics to, where you run into a challenge is getting an interpretation out of it, because it's already predefined. The intervals are so predefined. And if you try and change them with an interpretation of a lyric, you sometimes lose the original composer's intention. So it's very, very tricky. It's a very tricky thing. Are you with me on
Yes, I
that?
am. Because I'm thinking about Eddie Jefferson, and I'm thinking
Well,
about
Eddie had his own thing all the time.
Right.
I mean, he just did his own thing.
and John Hendricks, because both of them, they were really the
Well,
masters.
they wrote all of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, they were the
those
deans
two
of it.
guys wrote it all.
Yeah.
So how are you going with that? So I don't know. I was going to say something, so let's keep talking. It'll come back. It'll keep talking. It'll come back to me. I was going to say something about that, the lyrics.
But
I mean, you
improvising.
think about Mark Murphy wrote all these lyrics. He wrote the lyrics to Red Clay. Just the opening line is an indication of his genius.
Yeah.
Screen door slapping on a side porch. If that doesn't create an entire film in your head, something's wrong.
Right, right.
That's a genius.
Now you're in, oh, you get back up. Great city playboys all over town have built your hopes up. Lord, they're gonna get you down. Well, they like we're not worth talking about. Now you're in, oh,
fundamentally, that is something that I really admire about you and people who are teachers. Sheila Jordans, they are out here trying to make sure that the students understand, one, how to interpret the lyric, but also make it their own, which is very hard to do. It's like trying to sell a used car with 100,000 miles versus buying a car with 22,000 miles.
Yeah, I know. I have a pretty solid pedagogy regarding that. It's pretty solid. I've developed a way to make them understand what we call in each line of each stanza has a separate emotional identity. So there's so many things. I could sit here for hours and tell you how I do this, but we search for the verb that has the action. This is where you're going to riff. I coined a phrase called riffing for a reason. How many singers do we sit and have to sit through who are riffing all over stuff for absolutely no reason? It makes no sense.
Right.
Like, why are you doing that? Riff where it makes sense. You want to learn how to do that, you listen to Mark Murphy, because he's the master of that.
Yes, he is.
He's the master of that. But I'm pretty good at it too.
I noticed last night, I had planned to, and I did. I went around to a lot of the venues last night, but Carmen was like, "Man, you got to talk to her." I've known Carmen.
I talk about the drummer.
Yeah, Carmen. I've known Carmen for years, and when Carmen says something, you gotta listen. You gotta trust those instincts.
Maybe you gotta listen.
So I'm thinking, okay, the first two songs, okay, all right, she's good. Sync, line, and hook, you had me in the second song, and I stayed for the first set you did. And everybody in that audience, sync, line, and hook were eating out of your hands. And the one thing that is lacking, and we talked about this last night, swing is gone in this music. If you don't have the audacity to even attempt to move your audience by what you're trying to convey to them, you completely lose the audience. And for me, I get lots of CDs every week, and I can there's just an inflation of mediocrity in the jazz world. And it's all these people who have husbands or wives with money, and they're making records, and they're just filling up the radio stations with just, I don't want to say anything horrible, but you know what it does, man? It makes artists like myself, who've been working for so long and you're trying to get in there and get it played, and somebody with all the money is getting it played first. I mean, it's really, the music business has changed. That's a whole other subject you probably want to get on. What was your question, sir? No, I'm just saying, the swing part of jazz, I mean, it makes Ella Fitzgerald, it makes you, it makes Veronica Swift, and there's singers out there that made sure that once the people are involved with the music, everything else falls into place, and that's what happened last night.
Well, because jazz is it's such an interesting thing, because how do you define jazz? That's the $1 million question. Everybody has an answer on what it is. I believe intrinsically the most important thing about it is the rhythm. The timing of things, where you decide to place a word, which circles back to what you asked me a minute ago about how do you decide how to move a lyric and move it around. So there's a lot of factors involved that happen, and they're going on instantaneously in the singer's head. But yes, the swing thing, it is kind of gone. It's that the new young singers don't have a handle on it at all. But then who's teaching them that?
That's right. That's right.
So who's teaching them that? I'm doing my best. Wait. Don't try to fill the space. Wait. Then I send them tracks of just the drums. Sing that tune to just the drums.
Right. Because I listen to a record now like Sarah Vaughan live at
the greatest,
the Tivoli, or live at the club in Chicago. I listen to her records, and her records are like, wow. And the songs also have to be something too that is key to your set list too, which I noticed last night too. How do you involve your musicians with your set list? How do you put that together?
You mean how do they know what?
Well, know what songs that you're going to sing, because a set list is very important in order for you to perform those songs and to convey what you're trying to do for them.
Well, right now I just am unfortunately just pulling together the set and giving them the list before the gig. Carmen, the drummer, he's my first call drummer, so he knows my show. The pianist you saw me with, I work with him quite a bit. He knows the show. And there's often different other sidemen. That's just it happens sometimes.
Set lists are very important to a show, especially festivals and different venues. Say, like last night, your set list last night might be totally different from what you would sing at Birdland, or what you might sing at Birdland might be totally different.
This is a good point. I'd say where you're going. Yeah, I definitely put a lot of thought into who's going to be in that audience, and what can they withstand to listen to. Now, for instance, if I'm doing some little local gig, like a little tiny jazz place, so I might throw in some other kind of stuff. But if I know I've got people that have come to a jazz festival, they're not going to hear "Fly Me to the Moon."
Right.
That's not going to happen.
Right.
That's not going to happen. You see what I'm saying? Right. So it is a lot of thought. In fact, I'm glad you're asking me this, because it takes me days to get ready for one show like that.
I can imagine.
Days.
I can imagine.
And then you have to weigh out. First of all, you don't hit them with your biggest one. You hit them with a medium one. You noticed I did that. Then you bring them down to probably maybe a bossa or something Latin to calm them down a little bit. Then you nail them.
Yeah.
After that, then you bring them back down to a ballad. It's a lot like watching a movie.
Yeah.
And you also plan out your recordings that way as well.
Right.
So that they can sit and go on a journey with you. Teaching my students, don't do two fields the same one after another. Don't do that.
Switch it up.
Yeah, you got to switch it up.
You gotta switch.
I mean, most of us, most swing singers like myself, we could live in a medium swing until the cows come home.
Right.
I could just live in a medium swing, but you have to change it up. And I also say, I said to the audience the other night, I said, I'm going to do a couple for you, and I'm going to do a couple for me. Things that you can log on to, and things that I need to get next to. So anyway, I did this tribute to a gentleman who was the biggest influence on me of any singer. You go through a progression of people when you're learning this music. And I ended up, I had a student come to me the other day, and he says, I was listening to that Mark Murphy, I didn't get it. And stick around for 30 years, you will. So, anyway, I did this record, and this was one of the tunes that was on there and did quite well, a beautiful ballad. Said I, many times, love is illusion, feeling result of confusion, with no insight, and lost a cynical soul, and so am I felt so sure, so positive, so utterly changingly certain, that I never was aware of loving you. And suddenly I realized there was love in you and I.
I wanna walk with you beside me. This road so I'll puddle with you beside. Overrated treasures, underrated pleasures. I'm glad there is you. I'm glad there is you. Way too many play at love. I'm glad there was you. More than ever, I'm glad there is you.
You know, Nancy, a thing that I read about you was very interesting. You had come off of doing rock and you were playing with these loud bands for a period of time, and you were having a problem with your vocal.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some things that you had to do and you had to learn to re-implement as a singer. What were some of the things that you had to do?
I had sung about 10 years. Well, first of all, I didn't want to be a singer. I'm a pianist. And I got bamboozled, is the word I use, into fronting a rock band. And I said, why not? Because I'm that kind of person. I go, well, let's take a turn here and see what happens, you know. So I had sung without any training. And I started going hoarse a lot. So I said, I need help. So this is when I went and signed up at the Eastman School of Music. At that time, there was no one teaching popular voice. Everything was classical voice. This woman helped me immensely, though. But what was really cool about this story is that she, after 2 semesters, she said, I have to let you go because I'm going to ruin you. Meaning, if she instills the classical training on me to the point where I can't undo the muscle memory, I mean, how many times have we heard a classically trained singer trying to sing a popular piece, and you're going, yeah. So she had the insight, foresight, or whatever it is, to let me go. But what I learned from her was just priceless, priceless. So it changed my life. Never gone worse since then.
And that's very, very instrumental in learning how to craft your voice. I mean, we saw what happened to Adele a couple of years ago, where she could not sing and she had to have that catastrophic surgery. Now, had she messed up her voice again, she was never going to be able to sing again. That's why she had to relearn how to retrain her voice.
I don't know that I know exactly what happened with that. My inclination is to say that she was belting past her break.
Yeah.
I don't want to get it. We're sitting at a piano here, but she was belting past her break and consistently. And when you tax your vocal cords that hard, you're going to create a scar. And if you're working as hard as she was every night, you don't give it a chance to heal. So, you know, we've all had nights where, Lord knows, I like to sing out some blues.
Right.
And you heard that at all?
Yes, I did. Well, the blues is the jazz.
Well,
you gotta have it.
That's your mama.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your mama.
Yeah. And I always talk about this when we're talking about Black American music. There is no jazz without the blues. There's no gospel without the blues.
No, and even country music came from the blues.
Exactly.
You know, American music came from the blues,
That's
period.
right.
The kids don't realize that what they're listening to now, but this is my argument with what I'm hearing now, is I don't hear the blues anymore.
And here's a sidebar of what you said. You made reference to Tennessee Ernie Ford.
Yeah.
Now, I know who Tennessee Ernie Ford is, and a lot of my viewers may not know who he is, but he was a master vocalist when it came to folkloric American roots music.
Yep. He became mainstream because of a hit.
That's what it was.
Not mainstream because of his style.
That's right.
He was not like your average commercial, guy.
He was very unique, but it's funny you say that because the styling of what you're talking about, the blues, you have to approach blues differently than you do jazz. That's hard too. Explain how that's different.
The blues, I mean, I teach my kids, I love to talk about my teaching because I adore teaching and I adore passing this on to young people. And the blues came from people actually crying and wailing and being very, they're releasing emotion, and that's what is the foundation of jazz. But jazz has since then gone in so many different directions. Some of it not as blues based. Some of it more, some of the fusion stuff is more intricate in its makeup and composition. So I think sometimes the more notes you put in, the further you get from the blues. Right. I think that could be.
That's what made Joe Williams such a great blues singer.
Don't you love Joe Williams?
Yeah, he was the master of the blues song. And yes, he had Count Basie and he played with some very important jazz figures, but blues is interpreted differently vocally than it would be like a straight ahead like what you do. It's very, very different, but it's also missing in jazz also.
Yeah. Were you there last night? I threw in every day I had the blues.
Yes,
I don't know where that came from.
Well, it was you in the spirit.
I just heard, that's right, you speak truth. This is something we call in the jazz world the zone. Yeah. Because when you get in that place, the creativity just flows right through you. You just I don't even know an audience is there sometimes. You remember seeing Miles would turn his back? I mean, I don't even know they're there. Sometimes I move in the middle of. Did you see me keep? Yeah. Because I want to feel their vibrations. But had you had a wireless mic, you would have been into the crowd. You were getting ready to go there. If you had that wireless mic, you would have. Maybe. I don't know. I don't like wireless mics. Some of those salesmen say, "Here's a wireless mic." I said, "No, there's not one there." Oh goodness. Yeah. So I don't know if I explained that right. I would love to give that more thought of the difference. But when I teach, the first thing they learn after they learn how to make sound correctly is blues. Yeah. Blues. And that's where they go from there. This you must know. I make them sing 12-bar blues right off the bat. I make them learn something silly like Route 66, which is all straight singing. There's no fancy stuff going on. How are we going to make that sound good now?
Yeah, because when my grandfather introduced me to the music, the blues guys that he started me off on were Nat Cole, were Jimmy Rushing, were Joe Williams, and Billy Eckstine. And I can understand how they were very integral, especially the vocalists for the big band, because they played different modern styles of music at that particular time, but the lyrics were very important on carrying out the style of the music at the time.
I think, did you listen? See, I listened a lot to a lot of very blues. I call them blues-based singers. If music for me personally, if jazz is not blues-based, I'm not on board. I'm just not in the room. So this has been a theme in our conversation today. But I used to listen to a lot of the blues-based female singers too. I was a big fan of Dinah Washington's.
Ooh, my grandmother loved her.
Oh, a big fan of hers. And of course Nancy Wilson.
Yeah.
Nancy got a little on the
commercial side.
She got a little on the commercial side, and it made her career. God bless her, you know what I mean. But I got my rhythm, my sense of rhythm from Ella. I got my sense of lyric content from Billy. You know, that everyone we did. Someone say to me, "What's your favorite singer?" And I'm going, "Well, I don't know. What day is it?" You know, we put them all under the scope. I don't do it anymore. I don't. I have heard it. You know, I'm moving on to thinking about other things. You know, and the more you get in that locker, then you gotta start moving on to other things.
And I'm with you on that too, because sometimes they ask me, "What's your favorite female?" Well, it depends. One day it might be Anita O'Day. One day it might be Dinah. One day it might be Carmen. One day it might be Betty.
Yeah.
I mean, each woman presented a very unique voice to.
I think Anita O'Day was definitely one of the first white blues-based singers.
Yes.
Peggy Lee was one of the first white blues-based singers that brought it to the masses.
And played the piano.
Well, they're both musicians.
Yeah.
You got to be a musician. I tell all my kids, please take piano lessons.
Yeah.
You know, don't walk up on stage and not know what chords being played. Like, don't do that.
Right. That'll do it again for this very special edition of the Pace Report. Reporting live here at the famous Landmark Theater here in downtown Syracuse for this year's 2022 Syracuse Jazz Festival. I'd like to personally thank the incomparable Nancy Kelly and her trio for her time. Make sure you support her current CD, which is now available on iTunes, Amazon.com, and CD Baby. And visit her online at nancykelly.com for upcoming tour dates, as well as follow her on Instagram and Twitter. I'd like to personally thank and congratulate Frank Malfitano, the executive director of this year's 2022 Syracuse Jazz Festival. People, please like, share, and subscribe to my videos here on YouTube and Vimeo, as well as please leave comments and visit my website, thepacereport.com, for my weekly column, as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.